Hi everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Watercolor Wednesday. I'm Leslie Watkins. I hope everybody's well today. I have a special show. I have a unboxing that I'm going to share with you, and I also have a sneak peek to something I have coming up, so you're going to want to stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we're going to be painting a rose today, and this is one of the late season roses. It's called the Crocus Rose. It's a selection developed by David Austin, and it's one of my most favorite roses. And when I went out to let the chickens out earlier, I saw that there was one blooming and it was perfect. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. But first, I have a little something. Okay, I've got this box of goodies and I'm going to be showing you what's inside of it. I have a plan to launch a brand new subscription box in October, right on October 1st, and I'm calling it the Watercolor Paint Box. And in it are going to be a monthly color with a Zoom lesson and a private Facebook group and a bunch of other things that I'm not going to go into detail right now, but that's sort of the overview. And there will also be a special starter box available for people who wish to get started with watercolor. And so I've been doing a lot of research and development. I've been testing out a lot of things and just to get some ideas about what might be suitable products to share with you. And today I'm going to be doing this unboxing to show you some of the things that I've been looking at. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to show you how the idea has evolved. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to turn the camera down so you can get a good look at what's in the box here. I'm kind of excited about it. And as I said, so I've looked at some things that I just didn't think were up to the quality that I wanted to share with people, and I'm going to show you those as well. And I'm going to show you how you can use some of these things in a typical lesson, in this case the crocus rose, to give you an idea of what I have in store for you. So let's get started. So here's the box. Not my box, this is just the box of something that I ordered to see what it was like. And it is a couple of these wonderful little historic paint boxes that were produced by Schminke, which is a very good paint company. I don't always use Schminke paints. I use a variety of paints. There are a handful of very good watercolor paint manufacturers, and Schminke is definitely right up there with the others. It features this historic design of the box with this beautiful old type and this cute little owl logo. I think you can see him there. He's adorable. And then it has information about the contents on the back. Now, I actually ordered two, so this one's a little bit different. So let's get started with this little one first, and take a look at this. This is a very tiny travel kit, and I love these little travel kits. I also have a collection of boxes of all different makes and materials and sizes. I love collecting watercolor things. And so this is very cute. It's got the little thumb ring on the bottom, as I showed you last week, so you can just stick your thumb through there, hold the box, and get it open first. It's new, brand new, so it's kind of sticky. And inside, well, let's look here first. So in here, there's a little card that has that nice little owl logo, and then you also have a swatch chart so that you can mix up the colors yourself and see how they look. There are 8 colors in this box, and there are 16 swatches here, so you can add some more. You see that the top 8 are identified by number. That corresponds with the number of the pans. These little watercolor cakes are called pans. And then you have some blank ones down at the bottom so that you can add additional colors or your mixtures or whatever it is that you'd like to do. So this is what the inside of the box looks like. It's got these different colors, and let me read them to you quickly. Well, it's a little hard to, I'm going to have to take them out. So let me take out this. These are the little holders that hold the pans in place. And what's happening here is that the name is wrapping right around the wrapper, and I can't see the whole thing. So this looks like it's chrome yellow hue. I've got vermilion, ultramarine, viridian, English Venetian red, Payne's gray, and this is a tone of Payne's gray that is Schmincke's own proprietary tone, so it's not going to be the same tone as you would see in other makers. The Schmincke's Payne's gray is kind of nice because it's a little more neutral. Some of the others can be a little more on the blue side. Typically they've got a mixture of a red and a blue and maybe a black or some other pigment, so you always have to check to see exactly what each manufacturer has. And then I've got some raw umber and some yellow raw ochre. So a really nice collection of colors. It includes your primaries, so you've got your yellow, your red, and your blue. It has the viridian green, and then it has these very nice earth tones. So that that assortment appealed to me because this is similar to what I typically use, and I'll show you. This is my travel kit that I use all the time, and in here again I have the primary colors and the earth colors and a couple of extras, and I just tend to use these 8. I have many other colors that I can pull out if I need something special, but for going out and doing landscape painting or close-ups of nature, I find that this is perfect. So I'm very happy with these colors. And I also want to point out that let me get a pointer here. The Schmincke colors in this little kit are half pans, and the colors that I have in my box are full pans. So 2 of these equal 1 of these. So what's nice about these boxes is that while I have 8 different colors in it, you could also have 16 if you want to use half pans, or if depending on the size of the box, it might be 1 or 2 less, so you might have 14. But you have a choice, and of course you could mix them up. You could have your half pans and your full pans depending on what colors you tend to use more of. All right, so that is the cute Schmincke, and what do they call it? I don't see the name of the box, but it is a historic reproduction of one of their early travel paint kits. So we'll tuck that away. I'm not going to be using that today. And then I bought this one as well. This one's different. Okay, and the reason why I like this box is, first of all, it's a little bit bigger. It's still very small, very compact for traveling. But because it's larger, it has more room for color mixing, which is very nice. It has 6 half pans, and it holds tubes of paint, which is really nice when you're traveling and you want to keep things compact. So I love that idea. And it also comes with the similar papers that I showed you earlier. And the colors in here are cadmium yellow deep, cochineal red, which is an antique color that isn't used very often because it's fugitive. So it's kind of fun to have it and to play with it, but if you were planning on using it for a permanent piece of art, I would avoid using that one. But you could easily put some permanent rose or alizarin crimson or, you know, some other red that you liked. And then it has cobalt blue light, cobalt green, what is it? Cobalt green pure. It has the raw ochre, raw umber. So that's a little bit different from the raw sienna. And it also has a sepia brown. And sepia is a really nice neutral tone that you can use for monochromatic studies, which is what I like to use it for. So again, really nice pigments, really cute box. I love being able to have both the pans and the tubes in one travel box. And this is the one that I think I'm going to take for a little test drive today. So let me show you the beautiful rose. First, let me make sure, I'm just checking to make sure that you can see and hear me because this is live. So hang on, let's make sure that everything's working. Okay, that looks good. Now here is the beautiful crocus rose. And isn't that gorgeous? It was so wonderful to be able to go out there and see that blooming this morning. Didn't expect it. And I'm just going to do a quick little study, and I'm going to take these tube paints for a spin. Now, what I recommend you do is fill the pans right up. You don't want to put little tiny dots of paint because during your moment of inspiration, you do not want to be looking for more paint. So go ahead, put a good amount of paint in your pans. So there's my red, yellow, and blue. And then I have my cobalt green. I typically mix my own greens, but for the sake of taking this historic kit for a test drive, I'm going to go ahead and use what it comes with. The raw umber, What's nice about using tubed paints as opposed to the watercolor pans or the little cakes of watercolor is that they are water soluble sooner. You don't have to wait for the pans to become activated. They're ready to go. So there's my sepia. Okay. So now we're good. And I typically like to have these bigger pans closer to me, but I'm gonna paint a little bit differently this way today. Off to the side, I have a container of water. I have a sponge. And next, I'm going to share with you something else that I ordered. And I'm going to take these for a little bit of a test drive. So I got a selection of different travel brushes here. So a couple of different kinds. And hold on, got another one this size. And these were kind of moderately priced brushes. Now the brush that I use all the time that's in here, this is a more expensive brush, and this is something that you could always select for yourself at some point if you wanted to upgrade. But if you're just getting started, I'd love for you to use the best possible brush you can afford, but I also understand that brushes can be kind of pricey. So I've got these very inexpensive brushes here in the black case, and then I've got these kind of medium price brushes in the silver case. And if we compare what these brushes look like, let me try to zoom you in. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on camera or not, but the brush on the top, while both of them appear to have a nice crisp point, the brush on the top actually has a lot of shorter hairs all around. And there's also some loose hairs, and there's some bits sticking out. The brush on the bottom comes to a beautifully tapered point, and all of the hairs are arranged so that they form that point even when they're wet. So I'm going to wet these brushes now. We're going to see what happens. And by the way, both of these brushes are synthetic brushes. These are not sable brushes. Okay, so I've wet the brushes, and that's going to remove some of the size that the brushes are packaged in. And if you look closely, this brush is very soft. It's almost like a squirrel brush. And actually, this one may be natural hairs, but it's got all these little pieces that are coming out and sticking out, and that's part of the reason why it is not as costly as this brush. This brush, meantime, comes to a gorgeous point, so I think you can see that. And this brush is the black. I'm going to call this the black brush, and I'm going to call this the silver brush. So the black brush is much softer. It acts more like a squirrel mop, which is very nice for wetting the paper. And you know, sometimes it's worth having a brush that is inexpensive because you're just going to abuse it and do some scrubbing with it. And that's what I will probably end up doing with this brush. This brush, on the other hand, comes to a beautiful point, and what that means is that I'm going to be able to get some beautiful detail work as well as some broad strokes. And the case that this brush comes in forms a handle, so I can just screw that, and the case seems to be made pretty well on that one. And then this one just pops in like so. So let's take these for a little test drive. All right, I have somewhere here a piece of paper. It's buried. Let me get it out from the bottom of the pile. Okay. I see Kelly out there. Hi Kelly, thanks for joining me today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick sketch, just a quick pencil sketch of the rose to get it situated on my page. And I'm just turning it in the light to see what I like, and that looks pretty good. And so the rose is sort of has a roundish shape. This is a rose that has been open for a little while, so it's just about completely unfurled. And because I'm in a Northlight studio, I have the light coming from the upper left, which means that my shadows are going to be on the right hand side, and that's important because understanding the movement of light is going to help you to describe the form that you're looking at. And I've got an assortment of leaves here. So some of them are older leaves, some of them are newer leaves. The newer leaves are have a lot more yellow in them. And I'm not going to get too carried away with the leaves. I also have a couple of dried up buds from some past flowers that have gone by, and they add a nice little dark accent because they're kind of brown and shriveled, but they'll add some additional elements and nice shapes to the sketch. And I have my rose in this little antique bud vase. I'm not gonna put too much attention on the vase. I'm just gonna let that kind of disappear off into space. And I know you can't see very well. You will in just a minute, but that's because I'm just using a very light pencil sketch just to give me, let's see if you can see if I zoom in. Whoops, too much. But you see, it's just a rough sketch to help me get all of the different elements of the design onto the paper. And I find it helpful because what happens is that sometimes if you're in too big of a hurry to start painting, you might end up with your subject too close to one of the edges. So this way, if you take a minute just to do a quick sketch, just to get things located on your page, you can make sure that you have everything placed where you want it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this this inexpensive brush that I'm going to treat as if it were a squirrel mop, and I'm just going to wet some of the leaves, the flower, a little bit of the vase, and then I'm going to go into my move this over so you can see better. So I'm going to take some of my yellow, and I'm adding plenty of water because I don't want to be too strong just now. And I'm going to start in the center where the color is a little bit stronger, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of water to my brush, and I'm just going to pull that color around because the crocus rose is a very beautiful pale, kind of a warm yellow tone. And I'm also keeping in mind that the paint's going to be drying lighter than it looks when I first put it down. And now I'm going to take this ultramarine, this blue, and this is a pale ultramarine. So if you were to compare this blue with what Winsor Newton calls the French ultramarine deep, that would be a much darker blue. But this looks a little more. It looks more like a cobalt blue, but it's a great color, and I know that this is a good light fast pigment. So I'm just kind of mixing up a green, and I'm getting a kind of a very dull green, which is okay, but I need something a little bit brighter for these leaves, these young leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and begin by doing a yellow underpainting. And just putting a very pale wash of the same yellow on those leaves. And then I'm going to take that green mixture that I just made. I'm just going to drop that in and let that kind of move around a little. Okay, so one of the things that you want to do when you're working with watercolor is you want to take advantage of the flow of the pigment. And because these areas that I'm painting into now have already been moistened, the pigment is going to start to flow through them, and that's what I want. So I'm just going to let that do its thing. And there's a couple of leaves that I didn't sketch that I'm just going to indicate with some strokes. And I'm using a slightly bluer tone, a cooler tone, to send those back. And I'm not too worried about color right now because the color will develop as I continue to paint. Now, this little bud vase, and I'm just going to do a little background wash here. It has a aged patina effect on it, and so I'm just going to indicate the tone of it, and I'm just going to let that kind of disappear into space. I'm not too worried about that as far as the drawing goes. And I'm going to give all of that a soft edge to let that kind of vignette into the background. Now I can use that same tone on these dried up buds going off to the side there. And I can let that sort of extend into these kind of shadowy areas. So if I zoom you in a little bit, you can see that my picture is looking kind of abstract right now, and I like that. I want to keep that abstract quality. Now I'm switching brushes because, as I mentioned earlier, the black brush is a very soft brush and it doesn't hold its point terribly well. You can see that it's kind of just has that soft tip, which is great for certain effects. But now I want to get more into my drawing, and so for my drawing I'm going to switch to the silver brush that has this beautiful point. I'm going to add a little bit of this cochineal red to my yellow to warm it up a little bit, and I'm going to use that in the center of my rose, where if I look down into the folds of the rose I can see this beautiful color in there. And add a little more yellow. In certain places, just keeping it to the center. And as I move away from the center of the flower, the petals become, and let me see if I can show this to you. You see, the petals become paler and more kind of a creamy beige color. So for those, I'm going to mix up like a cool neutral, and so for that I'm going to take some of my blue I'm taking a little bit of the blue and a drop of the red, and a little bit of that yellow is getting in there as well. So I've got my three primaries, and that's going to give me a nice kind of a neutral tone. And I can continue mixing various colors in there until I can point it in the direction, or I would say temperature, of what I'd like that to be. And then I'm going to take a very pale wash of that color, and I'm going to use that to paint the shadows on these petals. Okay, so I'm just using a very pale, washy kind of a stroke to pick out some of the shadow tones of the petals on the shadow side of the rose, and also a little bit coming around here. Into the light. And I have to say that this brush seems to be doing a nice job of getting these fine little strokes into these different small areas. I want to darken that just a little, so I'm going to add a little more pigment to my mixture. And also going back into towards the center of the rose, just making some of those shadows a little deeper. Now that might be a little too dark. I'm just going to remove some of that excess pigment just to keep it sort of in the middle, because even though this is a what I would call a pale yellow rose, I'm painting it as if it were a white flower, meaning that I'm going to keep my values lighter. I'm not going to go quite as dark, and I'm going to keep them more neutral. Now, as I squint my eyes and I look at the area around the rose, I can see that there's more of a tone. So I'm going to go back to my black brush here, and I'm going to grab some more of that neutral background. I'm going to bring that right up along the side of the rose like so, and just let that fade off. Okay, and that's gonna help to establish the silhouette of the subject. By the way, I'm using hot press paper today. This is 90-pound hot press paper, so you can see it's starting to buckle a little bit, which is fine. It doesn't bother me at all. I did not pre-wet it, but it's a very thin paper. This is typically a paper that I would use in my watercolor journals and for card making and that sort of thing. And I use it for smaller paintings. So this is, I'm just going to keep this kind of small. Now I see one of these hairs is starting to come out. Hopefully that won't continue. All right, let's get after some of these leaves now. So again, going into my blue. So just taking out a nice little puddle of blue, adding a drop of yellow. This is cadmium yellow medium. I'm sorry, cadmium yellow deep. So this is a darker yellow than I would typically use for my green mixtures. And so it's going to give me a duller green. It's not going to be that bright spring green that you would get with a lighter tone of yellow. But because it's midsummer now, we're already just about to the middle of August, many of these leaves are starting to get those deeper green tones. So it's going to work just fine. Now I'm using my pointy silver brush again, and I'm starting to sketch some of the details of these leaves. So the shapes, the little stems that attach them to the main stem, the veins, especially the central vein. The central vein being so important because it helps to describe the direction that the leaf is pointing in. And if I look very closely, I can see those little serrated edges that our roses have. So I want to get that characteristic established. Here and there, I don't have to slavishly try to copy each and every one, just enough to give an effect. And again, I'm being very careful to observe where the light is falling on the leaves and where the shadows are falling. And I'll give you a close-up in just a second. And I'm still keeping the overall look very sketchy. And I think that's important because when you keep, the longer you keep things loose and open, the longer you have to make adjustments and changes and just be able to get more of that evocative feeling with your subject matter. If you try to get it everything too precise too soon, you lose a lot of that spontaneous quality that's so charming in watercolor, actually in any, I think in any medium, but particularly so in watercolor, in my opinion. All right, let me put a couple of darks on my dried up flower buds here, and also they have these wonderful dried up little, I don't know if they're sepals, but these wonderful shapes that are coming away from them. The stem. So they add this wonderful contrast and texture to the soft, fresh quality of the rose. You get this dried up, kind of scratchy bud. And I'm just going to put a couple of darks in there. All right, let me give you a close-up so you can see what I've got so far. So that's how it looks now. We're pretty much in the home stretch. I mean, this is just meant to be a quick sketch. So when you're working in your sketchbook, or you want to become familiar with your subject and you just want to play with your color combinations, like I'm playing with these new pigments that came in the set today. I don't know, these are not the typical pigments that I would be using. So I'm just becoming familiar with my subject. I'm becoming familiar with my pigments. I'm becoming familiar with my design and my composition. So all the different things, it's a sketch. And it's so important to do these sketches. I have dozens, maybe hundreds of sketchbooks filled with little thumbnail studies that that just help you to figure out what you want to include and what you don't want to include, what kind of techniques you want to use, all the different things that go into making a painting. You can do very quickly in just a few minutes by taking the time to do a little sketch. Another thing that I haven't shown you enough that is also extremely valuable is doing a value study. So just using one color, a monochromatic painting. So you might want to use the sepia, you might want to mix your own neutral tone. You could just use a brown, like a burnt umber. Maybe you want to add a little blue to it to make it even darker and have a little bit of the warm and cool temperature. So all sorts of things that you can do that help loosen you up, help to get you familiar with your tools and your subject, and will help to improve your skill as you go along. And if you could do a little study every day, or a couple times a week, or whatever the case may be, keep a sketchbook. You can buy a nice little spiral watercolor notebook, or you can make your own, as I've shown you in the past. I'll be showing you how to do that again soon. And just keep your brushes wet, as they say. Just keep it moving, so that every day you develop a practice and a discipline, and you will see your skill develop in very rapid time. That's the secret. If there's ever a secret, it's practice, practice, practice. So I urge everybody to get yourself a nice little watercolor kit. You can just start with one color. You could have, or you could have 3 primaries, and just start painting, and then add to it as you go. So I'm going to talk to you more about that in just a minute, but let's get back to the picture. I'm going to put some finishing touches on it, and I'm going to call it done. All right, so while I was talking, some of the areas have had a chance to dry a little bit, and it's still looking a little sketchy, and that's okay, but I am going to tighten it up just a little bit. So I'm going to go back into my, let me get this so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go back into my blue, add some of that yellow, and I'm going to continue adding more darks to my leaves. So I've already established my light areas, much of my middle tones, and now I'm just adding a couple of little accents to kind of pull it all together. Now this leaf needs a little more attention, so for that I'm going to add a little more pigment. And I'm going to use that to describe the shape of the petal that's in front of it. And I'm just going to let that sort of fade off into the distance. There's another leaf behind there, and I'm just going to indicate that with a kind of a soft shape. I can go back into that area where the vase is, and for this I'm just mixing together some blue, some red, and some of that sienna, and I can begin to capture the edge of this petal and get a nice rich accent. And then using some water, just kind of pull that into the background, just like so. I can use that same color to put a couple of strokes on these things, try to capture some of that crispy texture. There we go. And then I want to give my rose a little more attention. So I'm just going to make sure I have a clean area on my palette, because I'm going to go back into those pale colors again. Just using a paper towel to wipe away some of that excess paint. I don't mind if there's a little bit of paint on there, I just want to know what's on there. And I'm using my pointy silver brush. And this is that neutral tone. And I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it just to warm it up a little bit. And see if I can capture some of the texture of the petals. It's a little too light. I'm going to add a little more yellow. Tone that down a tiny bit. There we go. And just do a little more sketching of the center of the flower where all these beautiful petals are close together. And then as I get away, excuse me, as I get away from the center and the color of the rose becomes more beige, less yellow, I'm going to take that cool neutral mixture to do the same thing. Okay, so just sort of coming around, capturing those shadow areas. There we go. Now I just want to get just want to indicate that vase a little bit. Just kind of let that blend into the background, but give me that opportunity to put that nice dark accent that's gonna bring the eye into the picture. Same over here with these stems. And I'm going to add a little something over here. And finally, I want to give the leaves down below here a little bit of attention. Here's a stem. Okay, I think that'll do it for today's sketch. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope I've encouraged you to go out and get yourself a sketchbook or some watercolor paper. And if you're interested in learning more, and if you're interested in learning more about my new watercolor paint box subscription with the monthly classes, the starter kit, and the Facebook group and all the other things, please make sure that you sign up for notes from Dandelion Cottage. And this is important, and I'll tell you why. Because the people that are on my mailing list, the people that receive notes from Dandelion Cottage, are going to be the very first people to be able to have access to the wait list for the watercolor paint box subscription. And the first 10 people that subscribe to the watercolor paint box are going to get a very special deluxe edition paint box. And I'm going to give you a sneak preview today. So I'm going to turn the camera down for just a second so you can see what it looks like. I'm very excited by it. Now, this is going to be included in the starter kit, special starter kit. And as you can see, it's not the typical black paint box that you would usually see. It's in my logo color, so it's a gold box, and it features the Dandelion Cottage Design logo. So there it is. Okay, very excited about that. And inside the box, you're going to get one of the special silver travel brushes that I like so much. And you're also going to get all of these little half pans of paint. And in the first introduction box, you're going to get some an assortment of paints and a number of other items that I will do an unboxing at a later date. But each month you're going to get a new color that you can add to one of the pans in the box. And the lesson each month will also be featuring that color in the monthly subject, as well as some, various techniques and color mixtures and all that sort of thing. So stay tuned so you can learn more about the launching of the watercolor paint box and how you can be one of the first 10 people to get the special edition box featuring the gold logo color and the Dandelion Cottage Design logo. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be including the link to notes from Dandelion Cottage in the comments below. So please hurry up and get over there and subscribe so you don't miss the announcement regarding the watercolor paint box. And there's also a lot of other things in the notes as well, not just that. So stay well, stay happy, stay creative, and I will see you next time.